Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Veerman, and being joined right now from the road on the phone is our friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman. Max, how's it going?
I got my shirt off. I'm in my hotel room. First time in Belfast. Things are good.
We're also joined by our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. Shane, what's up?
How's that bod looking shirtless, Max?
Could be better, let me tell you that.
Yeah, today on the show, we have Andy King and Brooks Gray from the YouTube web series Filth City and all sorts of other things like the Amazing Gayl Pile, Cocked Guns. These guys are great. We're going to get to them in a bit because, as you'll hear, I have a history. I used to work with these guys, and Shane also has a history with them. But before all of that, Max, what's been going on, man? You're on the road. How's Europe?
It's good, but it's pretty boring. You know, when we go on tour, the guys in our band are probably like the least like rock and roll lifestyle kind of dudes you could imagine. So I literally have no stories for you, like nothing.
But do you like that? Do you like kind of a quiet life on the road at this point in your life?
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice. I become more of I become healthier. I exercise more. I have more of a daily routine. I actually read more every morning. I wake up and find a coffee shop and read. And I get to reconnect with the guys in the band. We actually probably get along even better when we're on tour together. It's when we're off the road is when, you know, maybe more bickering happens because we're not next to each other. But when we're all together, it's pretty good. So it's been fun. What about you guys? I missed you guys.
Wait a second. Oh, thanks, Max. We miss you too. But the first question, though, is who is the most rock and roll lifestyle guy in your band?
Oh, good question. I don't like nobody. It's really pathetic. I just brought home Nick some chocolate oranges because that's what he's really into.
Yeah,
and they're really cheap over here. He's really into those dairy oranges.
And you said you didn't have any stories.
Occasionally, we'll tie one on, but it's pretty lame.
I saw Nick with a Guinness beer the other day.
Actually, I'll be totally honest with you. I made him. He didn't even order that. I ordered that, but I made him pretend to drink it.
It was a PR move.
He had to hold it just for the shot.
Exactly. It's true.
Yeah, what's been going on here? There's been lots going on. Actually, because we've been so few and far between with podcasts, Max, we haven't talked to our listeners a lot. Like me and you and manager Ash and Lights had a pretty crazy night 2 weeks ago or something that we never talked about on the pod.
Oh yeah, you have to remind me exactly what I just know. I got home really late. I just remember leaving manager Ash's house. That's kind of the only part of the night I remember. Oh yeah, because we were hanging out. Oh, you explain it. Okay, because you probably remember a little better than me.
You and I were hanging out. It was the end of Lights' tour, and it was her birthday, so they were coming back to Toronto. So then we were going to meet up with them, but they were going to roll in at 1:30 or something. So we just decided to have a night in Toronto, you and I, just kind of tooling around on the Saturday. But by the time they showed up, we were already very drunk. And then the after party went back to manager Ash's place where she has this little electronic piano. And even though I was with two award-winning musicians, I cleared everybody out and was like, "Let me get on that piano." And I busted out some Oasis as I do. But then I also was like, I'm trying to do Great Balls of Fire, but I'm really drunk. And then I conceded. And then you jumped on.
Yeah, what did I play? I forget. I don't really have any good songs in my repertoire. You have a couple bangers, but
were they impressed at all with your skills, though, Mike?
I don't know. I was so sloppy, but I will say this though. While I was playing, Lights sketched an image of me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Do we have that? Or is it on her computer or something? She's really good at those cartoon pieces.
She's amazing.
Or whatever they are.
She's fucking amazing. And so we'll post that on our Instagram.
Did she sign it?
Yeah, she signed it.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Part of the story is that we left really late. It was one of those things where we were just all having such a good time watching Mike play piano and having Lights sketch Mike. And it was just the hours kind of flew by. And by the time we got out of there, it was pretty late. It was 4:30 or 5 in the morning, which is way later than I normally stay out. I just remember leaving Ash's place and you and I are waiting for cabs to go our separate ways. And you look at your phone and you're like, "Ooh, this ain't going to be pretty when I get home." And I think your lovely wife Danica even gave you a quick ring to see if you were still alive. And then I got home to Lauren's and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sleep on the couch because I don't want to annoy her. And then at about 5:30 in the morning, she comes into the living room and says, "Why are you sleeping out here? Come into bed." And then she never asked me what time I got in. So I think she assumes that I like probably crept in around like 2 a.m, like a normal person.
Like a reasonable time for a night out?
Yeah, but to this day, she didn't know that I'd only been sleeping for about 13 minutes.
But when you get sketched, like,
Yeah.
because I've been sketched a few times. Every time I look at the picture, it's always like the Wicked Witch of the West or something. I'm like, what? Thank you. Like, are you like, that looks like me, or that I'm flattered, or this has no semblance of who I am, or whatever?
That light sketch was really flattering. It was like very...
Yeah, my drunken recollection it was like a very like artistic version of you. So like in my drunken mind, I was like, oh my God, he's a true artistic genius behind that piano. That's like sort of what the picture said, even though that's not what the case actually was, but yeah.
Like, here's the thing. It's actually way cooler than I look in real life. So it was an awesome sketch. Obviously, anybody like the caliber of Lights who's going to, do something artistic like that, because everyone's just hanging out, after hours, having fun. It's awesome. It's cool. And I have it now. I showed you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll post that for all of our listeners. But that was an awesome night. Also, a while back from when our listeners will be listening to this podcast, I went to game 1 of the Toronto Raptors versus the Washington Wizards in the NBA playoffs.
This was kind of mind-blowing for me. Yeah. Because you were supposed to be at a party with
the Champagne Boys party.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the Champagne Boys were like gathering together to watch this Raptors playoff game 1 at Dan Hamilton's.
I could not be there for some reason, and I was getting ready to be jealous of not being there, and then all of a sudden I start flipping through Insta stories, like getting ready to see this crazy party, and Mike is basically like almost courtside behind the net. And he's like, I'm like, Mike, congrats. Like, this is amazing. How'd you get these seats? He's like, oh, explain it for the pod. It involved like 3 crazy things. What did you say?
I said it involves a millionaire, a CBC radio host, the Ritz-Carlton, and an SUV service to the game.
I was like, okay, say no more. And I'm just like, fuck, I can't wait to hear this story.
Well, and then Shane was like, he was messaging me. He's like, and put some of this on the podcast Instagram, like being like a marketing guy. And I was like, oh, right, I should put this. Because I don't know, and maybe this is like, unless I'm with one of you guys, and maybe our listeners can speak to this, like, I like my basketball love, or like my obsession with going home drunk and watching Star Trek and like putting that on my personal Instagram. I never know how much like our listeners give a shit about the basketball side of my fandom. So like I tend to, if I'm going to a basketball game, I'll post it on my personal Mikey V Instagram, and then I tend to do more pod related stuff on the pod, unless I'm with Shane or I'm with you, Max, because you guys are obviously part of the podcast. But I don't know, maybe I should post more of that stuff.
Well, I think when you're sitting that close, like even if you don't give a shit about basketball, it's the one sport where sitting courtside or almost courtside kind of transcends the sport, because it's just awesome to see.
Yeah. So I did that, and then Shane, you hilariously posted from your point of view at home.
Well, my wife was like, "Hey, I bet you can see Mike on the TV." And then I'm like, nah. So we start scanning. I'm like, holy shit, I think I see him. She's like, there's Tyson. and then all of a sudden we're like, yeah, there's Mike. And it was like right through a player's legs. So I freeze framed it, and then
that was actually just me crawling onto the court through his legs. I was so excited.
But I was pretty excited to see it.
And then Maxie, you posted from Dublin in bed at like whatever, it would have been 3 a.m. in Europe.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't too late because it was an afternoon game. So it would have been like 1 a.m, and Nick was sleeping next to me, well, in the other bed, not right next to me.
Well, you are shirtless.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we're pretty comfortable around each other at this point. But yeah, I was so jealous though, because this is my favorite time of the year for sports, and not even in North America. But yeah, go on. What else? Keep talking.
What happened was, I didn't plan. So Tyson, as we know, Tyson Parker, who works here and is a wonderful gentleman, I saw him like a couple days before the playoffs started, and he was like, hey, we should catch a game together. So I said, yeah, of course. I'm thinking he means like in a bar or something like that. And he goes, well, I'll see if I can like get tickets at some point. And I'm like, awesome. Tyson's a high up dude. He can make some moves. I'm like, he knows I'm a hoops head. So I'm like, let's do it if it comes to be, whatever. That Friday, I go for a drink, and he's there, and he's like, I'm going to game 1. And so I kind of jokingly, I'm like, what about all that me and you bullshit? Like,
that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, was that just sweet whispers in the night? And I go, who are you going with? And he says, his buddy Rich. I'm like, oh, cool, man. That's awesome. I also know I'm going to the Champagne Boys party. Peke's going to be there, Dan Hamilton, the whole gang.
But he's like, no, my buddy's rich and wants you to come. He's a millionaire, and he works for the CBC, and there's an SUV service.
No, so I don't know about any of this stuff. And honestly, like, I'm like, I would love to be in the building, but a part of me is kind of like, oh, I'm going to get heckled by the fucking Champagne Boys if I don't show up to this house party. I know I'm going to.
It's a real fear.
Yeah. So I'm relieved. I'm like, good, enjoy game one. The night continues. We keep drinking. We're talking more hoops. And Tyson goes, actually, would you want to go if I could get you into game one? And I say, and this is where I'm really like kind of torn because I don't want to let the Champagne Boys down, but I also, my love for basketball might be more for them.
Of course.
And it's game one of the playoffs. So I'm like, you know what? I'd love to if you could. So he reaches out to his buddy Richard and he's like, is there an extra spot? Dude goes, yes, there's an extra spot. I'm like, there's just a random extra spot. And Tyson goes, yeah, it might be a box. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And Tyson's friend has like, I guess done well. That's why he takes his friends to these games or whatever. I really don't know how it's going to go down. So then Tyson's like, all right, tomorrow I'll send you a message. I'm like, great. So I'm like, what's the deal? He's like, meet at the Ritz-Carlton bar at 4:30.
Only fancy boys meet there, by the way. You got to be a fancy boy.
I know. And I honestly sent Danica, so I was eating lunch before I went to the Ritz, and it was literally zoodles and a pizza pocket. And so I sent Danica a photo and I go, do you think any of these guys I'm meeting at the Ritz are eating the same thing for lunch? I'm like, Tyson, I text him, I'm like, are you going to be there? Because I don't know anybody from this group. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll be there. So I walk over to the Ritz Carlton and I go in and I look around. Of course, Tyson's not there. He's late. And there's like a group of people and I'm like, okay, is that the group? And then there's kind of people sitting at the bar. I'm like, is that the group? I'm like, I'm just going to go sit at the bar and order a Guinness and wait for Tyson to show up.
Mostly just try to get a buzz going when you inevitably have to meet these strangers and Tyson's still not there, right?
100%. So I see a guy sitting there and he's drinking a glass of wine. And there's one seat between him and then there's like another couple. And I'm like, is this seat taken? And he sort of very politely goes, no. And he kind of moves to the side and pulls his drink over. And I sit down, order a Guinness. 5 minutes later, Tyson walks in. He goes, oh, Mike. He goes, have you met my friend Matt? And I go, I haven't met Matt. Are you guys? He's like, we're actually all the three of us are going to the game together. We're part of the group. He's like, Matt, this is Mikey. Mikey, this is Matt. I'm like, oh, hey, man. And he's like, small world. I'm like, small world indeed. I'm like, so are you a big Hoops fan? Do you live at blah, blah? I just start shooting the shit, kind of finding out who he is. He starts asking me questions. He's like, oh, what do you do? How do you know Tyson? I start explaining, oh, I'm like a writer-producer at Bell Media. I'm like, but I also actually do this podcast on the side. Oh, because he mentions that he works at CBC. Mm-hmm. I go, oh, cool, which is right around the corner from the Ritz-Carlton. I go, I actually, thinking, because he works at the CBC, he'll know who Max is, like, Arkells are always around there. So I'm like, I actually do this podcast on the side with my friend Max. He goes, oh, I know your podcast. He goes, aside from my radio show, like his morning show, he goes, I also do a thing called Podcast Playlist. So now my brain starts turning and I'm like, wait a second. This dude is somebody. Turns out it's Matt Galloway from the CBC. Like,
there it is.
This dude's like his picture's on the side of the building. Like he's like a known dude. He's like their most popular on-air guy.
That's so funny.
So and also I'm kind of like Tyson. You could have gave me a heads up because I'm like, Matt's either going to think I knew who he was and I was faking like I didn't, or even worse, I didn't know who he was and I should have known who he was. But here's the thing. He is an awesome fucking dude. I love Matt Galloway. He was an awesome hang. Anyway, it turns out that Tyson's friend, who actually like kindly gifted all of these tickets to his friends, as far as I can tell, he can't make the game now. So now we're kind of in
that guy ends up being Ron McClain or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
That's who it is.
It's like Don Cherry actually is the person doing it.
So he's not going, but the rest of us are going, and we're at the Ritz. And anyone that was in Toronto that weekend knows that it was like crazy snowy, and it was, they closed down Jurassic Park. It's like, all right, it's time to make it to the game, and I'm like, are we gonna have to hail a cab? And there's just 3 SUVs outside the Ritz waiting to take us to the game. Like, I walked into the craziest, there was a large group. And so now I'm in an SUV, not with Tyson or Matt, who's my new buddy. And I'm making friends with people, man. And so there's this other person. Her name is Beth. She's great. She works for The Loop. So she technically works in our company, but we haven't hung out with her a bunch.
Did you recognize her?
I recognized her, but we haven't really talked much before then. So I was like, oh, okay. So she ends up in my car, and she starts asking me, like, they're like, oh, tell us about basketball, blah, blah, blah. So I'm explaining things, and I eventually go, you know what, we might be able to get into the partners lounge because my buddy works for MLSE. Of course, I'm talking about the Nut. And she takes a beat, and she says, are you talking about the Nut?
Wow.
And she can see the look on my face. She says, full disclosure, I am a huge fan of the pod. I've listened to every episode. I was like, what? She's like, I just had to let you know. I know about the nut. I know all about Shane's life. He's got a baby on the way.
Wow.
I'm like, man, this is turning into the funnest night ever.
Someone knowing you.
Yeah. I've been recognized. I'm in an SUV.
Free tickets to your Raptors.
And at this point, I still think we're like going to a box. And then you saw the seats that we ended up in. So it ended up being this magical experience. Like everybody around me, it was an interesting, diverse group of people that work in television, people that work in tech, just friends of theirs. And it was such a great crowd. And Tyson, he rolls in like a very good crowd, and they were very kind, and they welcomed me. And I was like very loud. And when you're that close, like you realize the refs can hear you. So I'm like, Tony Brothers, you fucking blew that call. And, you know, but all these other
Then they
people,
actually look at you.
they look at me. But I'm also with people that I don't really know. But luckily, all of these people like embraced my enthusiasm and were like high-fiving and fist-pounding me. And then like I would say something, I'm like, you got to move the rock one more time. And then like an older gentleman like 3 seats down from me who's part of the group just looks back and gives me a thumbs up. Like he's like, yeah, brother. He should have made the extra pass.
Was it Superfan?
No, Superfan wasn't in our group. And then basically to end just this story and my magical night with Matt Galloway from the CBC, Tyson and Beth, they wanted to go for a drink after because the Leafs game was going on. And so I said to the Nut, I texted him, we also met with the Nut at halftime and he got us free drinks. And I passed Drake right by the Partners Lounge. Like he literally, like him and all of his dudes were like, they walked by like a foot beside me. We made eye contact.
Head nod?
No head nod, just eye contact.
Don't push your luck.
And then, don't push it. If I nodded, I get kicked out of the game. So then afterward, they want to go. So I text the Nut and I'm like, hey man, is there anything cooking? And it was like at the point where my brother Greg started texting me and he says, are you going to come hang out with us or are you too fucking fancy and elite with your fancy seats, asshole?
Did you just say the latter?
No, I was like, I'm going to come. And he was like, Peke's about to leave. And I'm like, tell Peke to stay right there. So I mean, and this is a first for me because I probably would have stayed all night with Tyson and Matt and Beth. But I was like, gang, I have to go. I've got a whole apartment full of 20 dudes, champagne dudes, and they are watching a bunch of hoops, and I'm getting heckled right now. But you guys, you're the best company. I had the greatest time, and that was my experience at Game 1 of the Raptors and Wizards.
I took a video of Tyson. They did like an odd close-up that kept zooming in on him, and I sent you a video of it.
Oh, yeah, I showed it to him.
Was he blown away?
Yeah, he loved it. I think I sent it to him. He was like, send me that. Yeah.
Because I remember I sent it, and then you said, this is the fucking best with like 8 exclamation points. I was like, I wonder if he's talking about the video or just his night in general.
Probably both.
Right.
At that point, I was pretty jacked, man. And thank you so much to Tyson for bringing me along and introducing me to his friends because man, it was a night to remember, and I don't take that stuff for granted because, like you guys know, like my 1/4 season tickets are up in the 300s, and I just love being in the building. So to be that close was a huge thrill for me, for sure.
Hey, to tie this all together, actually, I remember part of the night before we met up with Lights and Ashley and this goes back to a story about the Nut. Is that Mike? Do you remember? And it just came to me now. We tried to get into a certain bar. Before we met up with Ashley and Lights, we tried to get into a certain bar on King Street.
This is part of that night.
Okay, you go. You tell it, Mike.
Yeah, we were hanging out, and we went, and because we were with Dan Hamilton for a bit, then he left, and then me and you decided to go. Are we allowed to say the name of the bar? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, say it.
So we decided to go to Locals Only, which is like a real nut fave, and we get there. It's probably like, I don't know, 11:30 or something like that, and it's me and Max, right? And Max, like, you're pretty golden in Toronto for getting around or people kind of knowing who you are or whatnot. And as we pull up in the Uber, we see there's just a huge fucking lineup. So we're both like, geez. But then we're kind of like, we should be all right. Like, we've been here enough. And we go up to the bouncer, and I'm like, I'll take care of this, Max. Like, I'll do the talking. You don't have to get yourself in. But I'm going to use, I'm going to say who you are. So I'm like, hey, I'm here with Max. He's in Arkells. We're here quite a bit. And he's just blankly staring at us. And he's not he's not moved at all by what I'm saying. And I say the Nut's full name. I'm like, we're friends with, and I say the Nut's name. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh my God.
I do not. And Max and I burst out laughing.
It was the greatest. It was so funny. There was a 0% chance that he was going to let us in with just Max and from Arkells. And then as soon as we mentioned the Nut's name.
Can we cut this story, though, from the pod?
The nut will love this story, but
Oh
it's
my
true.
God.
Max couldn't get into locals only, and we had to drop the nuts name.
Wow.
That's what it's come
it's
to.
a new low.
That's what it's, it's a new low. Okay, guys.
Oh, man, that's
this has
great.
been a good catch up. It's nice. We miss you, Max.
I know. I feel like I got to go cause some trouble tonight in Belfast just to give you guys some good stories.
Yeah, 2 chocolate oranges tonight.
2 chocolate oranges tonight. If you get crazy, put it on the Mike on Much Instagram, Maxie. But right now, guys, we need to get to Andy King and Brooks Gray from Filth City.
Love these guys.
Phenomenal dudes. I used to work with them when I started here, like fetching tapes as a unit assistant and getting coffees and all that stuff. These guys were producers, and they were making really cool content, and it was really exciting to work on it all because of how creative these guys are. So they have this thing out called Filth City. They also have been in Cocked Guns, which a lot of people love. It's a great cult show about a band. They did a show called Much Screwed Over, which Shane actually starred on back in the day before he ever worked here.
In an episode I was in.
You were in an episode of Much Screwed Over as like you set up one of the marks. You'll hear about this in the interviews. So it's a very sort of like familiar conversation with old friends where we hear about sort of their trajectory through, becoming actors, writers, producers in entertainment, working on Much is Screwed Over. They did How We Do It with Howie Mandel. They were on Scare Tactics. Everyone remembers Scare Tactics. So a lot of hidden camera stuff, a lot of acting stuff. And of course, they're both on the Amazing Gayl Pile, which also stars Morgan Waters. So please go check out the Amazing Gayl Pile. The new season's called Apocalypse Soonish, and it's starring, of course, Morgan, Brooks, and Andy. And go online right now and watch Filth City because it's right there on YouTube for you if you're in Canada and you want, maybe all over the world. But yeah, so these guys did a lot of cool stuff, and Andy was on an episode or on a few episodes of the show Fargo, which is on Netflix right now, obviously, Billy Bob Thornton and all these people, and they were shooting it in Canada, and he has a hilarious story about how he got cast on that show.
It's a great story.
When I was listening back and cutting this interview, I was just laughing a ton. So let's get to Andy King and Brooks Gray. All right, we're just going to jump into this thing. So for our listeners, like we said off the top, we're joined by Andy King and Brooks Gray, who are part of, LaRue Entertainment, Filth City, the Amazing Gayl Pile, all sorts of stuff. But one of the reasons we wanted to have you guys on is because we used to work together.
Yes, indeed. We did, Mike.
In this very building.
That's right. You guys were much like Shane and I, like writer-producers for commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, we actually did a lot of work together. I mean, we did a lot of shoots together. Do you remember?
Of course.
All the IDs we used to do. And
Yeah.
I can remember you holding like a grip stand and doing the sound and, like.
I do, yeah.
Right? Everything.
That's how we did it, yeah, man. Honestly, I was like a production assistant when I started here, and you were producing spots, and then Brooks, we actually traveled to Vancouver. And
That's right.
Remember that?
That was a crazy trip.
That was a crazy trip.
Do you remember we saw from the Ottawa Senators naked?
There's way more to that story. Way more.
That's just one thing that happened.
It was. I do remember, though, the next day, there was some person that was not really affiliated with us. We all got in a car to go somewhere. She worked for one of the companies we were shooting for, and I think she had a dude in her life, but she might have hooked up with one of the hockey players. And she was saying in the car, I can't believe I did that, but hey, what happens in Vancouver stays in Vancouver. And you leaned into me and you went, wrong.
And he's proving it right now.
Yeah, well, that's right, I guess. Well, look, it's way in the past. But
We're going to have to cut this out.
yeah.
We'll bleep the names. Yeah. There's a whole story there, but
it was nuts, though, yeah, that they...
there were nuts. There were nuts on that beach. Yeah.
There were nuts. It was on the beach, too. We went, and then all of a sudden, spontaneously, all these hockey players and film people started jumping in the water, right?
Yeah.
Or marketing
Sounds
people,
like the craziest trip ever.
It was.
This is crazy.
It was the first time. So it was the first time I pretty much traveled for work, and it was the first time I'd ever been in the ocean.
That's right. You wanted to see the ocean.
I did.
I
started the whole thing.
started the whole thing. And somehow the hockey players came with us. They were like, that's a good idea. And then we all went, remember?
Yeah, man.
Was it skinny dipping?
It was skinny dipping.
yeah.
They all took off their clothes and went in. And
So
I don't
you
know.
provided the sort of
The catalyst for them to get crazy on their trip.
This was definitely pre-social media, too, it sounds
Oh,
like.
big time.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the NHL players could not do that.
Oh, no way. No.
No, they get busted.
And I know I didn't get naked because I was like, I'm gotta got the camera gear, guys. Like I but I don't know. You went in the water, but I don't think you got naked.
I didn't get naked. No,
But
no,
literally the marketing.
we're
executive-
surrounded by like fucking Adonises, and I'm gonna take off my underwear.
Exactly. They were all ripped.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then suddenly I just remember the marketing executive girl that we were with just ripped her top off, and then she was like, let's do it. And she was just on fire. Like it was shocking too, because she seemed really conservative when we met her.
Well, that's a crazy start to this. Thanks for coming on, guys. But yeah, so one of the reasons you're here is because you guys have Filth City out. I mean, Andy, you directed this film.
Yep.
You
Brooks is
co-wrote
in it.
Brooks is in it.
Yep.
Yeah, I co-wrote, directed it, and it was produced by LaRue Entertainment.
Yes.
And Pat Thornton is the star of the film, and if people know Pat, he just won 2 days ago. We just won at a Indie Film Festival in LA. Pat won Best Actor and won Best Web Series and Best Ensemble Cast. So,
Congrats. That's amazing.
yeah, we were pretty stoked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was watching it last night because I'd been hearing about it for a long time because I was talking to your brother Matt when we were at Just for Laughs, and he was telling us all about it and just like following you guys on social media and all that stuff. But I was watching it, and I don't know if this is giving anything away, but I got just a bit past the part where your character Brooks eats it.
Yeah. And by eats it, you mean gets killed. Well,
Yeah.
I guess spoiler alert, not really gets killed. I guess it's kind of.
I think you died of natural causes. That's the way I read it.
Well, now we're really spoiling.
Okay, sorry. We can cut that.
But there are a lot of people go down, a lot of deaths. That's for sure.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, part of the concept really was because when we started, we were like, we were making a movie and a web series at the same time. Like a lot of people were confused because, is it a movie? Is it a web series? But we planned it this way. And like the old, I was thinking of these old magazines like Black Mass, these old detective magazines, where these writers like Hammett and Chandler would write their stories like chapter by chapter, and then they'd amalgamate them into a novel. And because there's all this money on the digital side of things and it's harder to get money for films, we said, well, maybe we could do both, and we'll sort of do it that way. But so I went with the same philosophy in a sense where all these guys, they would put a murder at the end of every chapter to kind of keep the interest over the weeks. And so that was sort of the philosophy. So a lot of people end up getting bumped off.
Yeah.
And then when you start to think, what if we could go, with another season or another sequel, then you're like, there's no one left.
Yeah.
He made the mistake of killing himself or his own character too. That was just I always thought that was kind of a dumb move.
Well, I don't know how many spoilers we can talk about. I never know if when we talk about a movie, if we're like, watch it and we won't tell you anything, or if we should discuss it and then they can go see it for themselves.
No, I'm kind of getting annoyed by this. So
it's
man.
Yeah.
Should disclaim it.
But for comedies, it's kind of different, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, it's different that you can give away stuff. I mean,
There's some good shocks. I find watching it, there's some good surprises that you don't want ruined, I think.
Okay.
Even though it's a comedy, but it's still dark and gritty, and it's like,
Right.
people die that don't deserve to die and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, there's one death that I was very shocked. I was like, are they going to do this? And they did it. And there's like a lot of laughs. There was, I mean, can we talk about parts? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, let's talk about it.
I loved when you play one of the main cops in it. And at one point, you're going to try and like capture a scene on your phone, but you have no space left because of the photos on your phone. So in this like heated moment, he's got to delete photos, but he's like, oh no, that's a pretty good one. Which is like that shit made me laugh.
Well, the funny thing is that's very autobiographical to me because I still have this phone and it's cracked and I need to upgrade, but I keep having to delete apps. Because then I can't get my email, and it's nuts. And my wife makes fun of me for it all the time. And really, it was her idea. She's like, "Oh, that should be the reason, because this happens to you, So, and I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I could talk about a few scenes, but we won't go into all of them. One of the things I did want to ask about was, so like we said, you guys worked here with us, doing like sort of like more traditional, like 9 to 5, but in creative.
It was never 9 to 5, but
Don't give away the secrets.
But
man.
go ahead, yeah.
And then you guys sort of like left to sort of pursue your own thing.
Well, the first thing we did, the reason I quit here was to go do the show Cocked Guns with Andy.
Both of us did, yeah.
We did a
Right into
series,
the microphone.
We did a 13-episode series immediately on the heels of working here. That was an IFC Canada series, and that was great. It was like a mockumentary about a rock band. And then things like, scare tactics and everything came after that.
Yeah, we ended up getting production work after that, kind of, out of some of that work. But really, we left to do our own show, so we were really stoked. And it was, Max might appreciate this, but it was a band mockumentary.
Yeah, I know Morgan. Yeah,
you know Morgan, right? Yeah,
show, yeah, of course.
We said it was a show about the worst band you've never heard of. And
But Kite was in that too, wasn't he?
Tyler was in that.
Tyler
He
did a
played,
cameo,
one half of this duo called Smooth Ocean.
Yeah,
It's a rival band.
Is that like a play on Wave? Were they like supposed to be?
They were just like supposed to be sort of cool, easy listening. I think.
remember there was a scene in the park.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were wearing like cool hats and suspenders, and they're kind of douchey and shitty.
Man, when you
Deep
guys
V-neck T-shirts, that kind of vibe.
totally.
Yeah, it
when
was
you
funny.
guys left and had that show, like I was in a band, but you guys had left, and we were like, oh man, you guys had the DVD, and then like I brought it back to the band house.
Yeah, we watched it together.
We all, because Shane, we had the 4 guys from the band living in the house, and then Shane needed a place to live, so we let him live in the basement, which constantly flooded.
It was like a
so nice.
Oh my god.
And then yeah, but we had your DVD, and we like would watch it at the house, man. We died.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
It was, it's to this day, and I'm not kidding. I still get on the Cock Guns Facebook. You'll get people commenting like, it's been off the air for at least 8 years, I think. But some people still know it. Some people have never heard of it. Most people, I would say, have never heard of it. And we left here. We left much to go pursue our dreams. And then after a year, we actually won a bunch of awards here too. But then they canceled it, and then we were sort of back to scrambling for work. So that's how we ended up on Scare Tactics and all those other shows.
So, okay, so you guys leave here, you guys do Cocked Guns, and then you say you're kind of like, oh, shit, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
And then is that when are you guys going on auditions as actors? You're generating your own content?
I still thought of myself as a sort of a writer-producer at that point because of, our training here.
Yeah.
And actually, when we went on Cock Guns, I was like, I don't know how to act. Like, I had done it in videos and stuff, but I realized pretty quick when you're doing it every day as a job, there's things you should know about it.
About it. It's like a real skill that
people train their whole lives.
Yeah. It's like a really difficult. Yeah.
So that was tough, but I definitely sort of thought of myself more in that category. And then I think it was our friend Leo who was on Cock Guns who got this job originally on How We Do It, the Howie Mandel hidden camera show.
I remember that when you guys got that gig, it was like word spread, like, oh, they're doing the Howie Mandel show.
Yeah, and it seemed big, and it was for American TV, and we thought, okay, well, there's a bunch of U.S. execs. Actually, one of the producers on that show is this guy Michael Rodenberg, who like runs 3 Arts Entertainment, and if anyone knows what that is, like they represent all the big people, like Chris Rock and like everybody. But so we were like, oh, cool, he was like this 58-year-old guy in like a tracksuit, they had 3 phones.
Yeah.
It was so weird. It's like so cliche, but
Of
so
course.
amazing. And but we never really ended up talking to him much. But we met the guy running the show was the creator of Scare Tactics, and I knew Scare Tactics. I think we aired it on Space way back in the day, and I always thought it was hilarious. So right away I was into it. And
wasn't it Shannon Doherty? Was she like the host?
She hosted it for a while.
Yeah.
And Stephen Baldwin.
And Tracy Morgan, wasn't it?
That was the season we did, was Tracy.
Yeah.
And actually, I went down to film some bits with Tracy. That's another story. He's a nutcase, like full on nutcase.
Legitimately?
I mean, I don't know what his deal is. Like, I couldn't tell, but he showed up.
Pre-accident or post?
This was pre.
Okay.
This was right around the time, just after he had said something controversial on stage. I can't remember what it was, and he got in trouble for it.
Was it about people or something?
It might have been, or if he'd kill his son if he was.
We're
Yeah.
Something
gonna have to
like
bleep
that.
those words, by the way.
Well, I thought it was a good bit. No.
But that's what he said. That's a direct
It's a direct quote.
Yes.
But he was. But I went to film with him, and I had to do all these like little bits for the show where he was actually acting in them. Like we did a Scare Tactics bit where Tracy Morgan got kidnapped, and the Mark thought that he was really kidnapped, and so I had to shoot all this stuff. But he showed up. You go in, they fly you in, and you have such limited time, and he showed up 4.5 hours late. Right. First of all, 4.5 hours. I was just sitting in a lobby, and then as soon as he got there, he's like, man, I need a haircut. And then he just called up his personal barber. Then he went to his room for an hour. Then he had his girl going out to get him McDonald's, and then it was really a struggle. And in the end, he delivered. I mean, to his credit, he totally delivered. But it was just, I was such a big Tracy Morgan fan because he was on SNL. I think when I was in high school or something. I just really loved him, and it was a little bit of a disappointment, to be honest. But
Never Meet Your Heroes.
Yeah. And, right?
It's always interesting when it's like those stories are funny to us because we didn't have to work with them directly. But like as somebody that's actually trying to produce a segment or act, it's like those stories aren't charming. It's just a lack of professionalism that is always funny when you hear about some legendary performer. But then it's a real bitch when you're actually trying to do the work.
Oh, man. I mean, you get kind of a story out of it, I guess, afterwards. You tell people, and it's somewhat interesting. But it is super stressful because, it's an opportunity for you. You feel like you have to deliver. And then, 4.5 hours. I mean, the shoot was like scheduled for 5 hours,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it went long.
Yeah. A little bit long.
Were you on Scare Tactics as well?
As an actor, I wasn't a producer or writer on it, but I did probably 10 episodes as an actor.
Yeah.
I wasn't on How We Do It either, but I was jealous of those guys when they were on it. I was doing other stuff.
That's always a funny dynamic too, though, because you guys have sort of like done so much work together.
Yeah.
When they get something like How We Do It, are you like,
fuck.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Mostly, I mean, at the time too, I was just like, I need work. Like, forget what it is. I was more just like, wow, I quit like my stable job to do this show, which went away. And then I ended up working for, I'm like, what the hell? Same thing as Andy. I was like, what the hell do I know really about being an actor, a writer, producer? We put together a piece of tape that showed what Cock Guns was, and then we got a 13-episode order. Like, I've learned in retrospect, that never happens. At the time, it was easy to believe, oh, this could go on forever. This is how it works. You just get a show and it's fine. But when it went away, it was kind of like, well, now what?
Yeah.
Did you ever have a moment where you're like, what have I done? Like, I shouldn't have left?
Not really, only because I didn't, like, even getting the job here was sort of like, oh, this is weird anyway. Because it's not like I went to film school or anything. As I say, we did sketch comedy and stuff. My real, like, what I applied for the job with was all stuff that we'd done on our own.
Yeah.
And I always had that view of, like, my career has been lurching from one thing to another, following opportunities, doing things that I think are interesting or fun, and struggling a lot of the time. But I don't know. But looking back, I don't really have any regrets about that. But it's certainly, you learn fast that things can go away quickly. And now, you have to be a little bit more precious about what you're going to spend your time on and what you're going to do with your career.
And you're more likely to get shit done if you have no other option.
Yeah,
it's easy to get lazy when you're at this job.
Well, it's not just lazy. Like, what I found about this job was, like, I loved it. And
we're talking about, for our listeners, the job that all four of you guys did in the past and we did here at Much Music, Bell Media, that sort of deal.
That's right. Yeah. And like, I really loved it here. It was really like high school, obviously. And, you had everyone in different departments. I learned so much. Like, all these people taught me things and how to edit. And in the real world, you don't pick up as much from different people. Like, here, you don't realize, but you get to learn from all these other amazing people. I mean, we had Carl Armstrong in our office. And
I'm going to a basketball game with him on Sunday.
Are you?
Amazing.
Oh, yeah, I love Carl.
He's a legend around
He's a
here.
total legend.
Yeah.
But the hard part for me was just that, you still had to do 10 promos a week or something.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
it's just exhausting. Like, the pace of it was so intense. And you were always doing this sort of concentrated work that was similar to the work you wanted to do.
Yep.
And taking up all your time. So you really had nothing left.
When you get home, you don't want to, like, write a script or
Exactly.
do anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we always did. I felt that one thing I've always done, if I have a so-called steady gig, I've always had a thing on the side, like moonlighting, just to keep it interesting and to keep, you always want to
You're
do
looking
stuff.
at our
Exactly.
side gig right now.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like
exactly.
what we do outside of our day job, because I do think that, like, it's not incredible. It's not totally fulfilling in that way, I think. So it's like there is something good to do on the side if you want to stay creative and kind of do something that's going to...
That's something you can totally own yourself, that it's like for you.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
but I mean, how many guys that are like, I know guys that are working, they're plumbers and they are in a band. Like, it's always something where it's like, and they seem like they're just as committed to the band as they are to their career as a plumber.
Max
just one pays the bills.
is in a band and he does plumbing on the side.
Yeah.
Whoa!
That's my true passion.
It's hard to get out of
But
a
just
band.
free plumbing, like just free land. You're like, hey, anybody need a drain fix?
Yeah,
'Cause,
pro bono
yeah.
plumbing. Yeah.
That's great.
I plumb
Well,
for the
can I just say, though, that you guys are really great at this, and keep it up.
I heard I listened
I love it.
recently to the live show you did with Catherine Reitman. That was great.
Oh,
You're
thanks.
doing more live ones, I guess, eh?
We'll see. That one
want
went
to.
In
pretty
May,
well.
apparently.
It went so good that we don't want to do another
We
one.
kinda don't
Right,
want to.
it was
That's
like,
what
it
I
lives in
always
our
say,
mind as the greatest
Right.
night
It's
of
kind
all
of like
time.
drugs. It's like it's hard to get higher, so
Yeah,
it's like we
right.
should probably just quit now while we're ahead. But
You obviously don't take drugs. I think it's awesome, and every time I see someone on your podcast that I like Danny McBride's an example.
Oh, yeah.
I really love Danny McBride. When I hear your interviews, I find them just so much more interesting and involved, and the pace and everything I learn from them just much more so than the average bear.
Andy, this is about you guys. Stop it. I mean, I'll leave all that in, but thank you so much. But so anyway, so going on from that, well, actually, one thing that we wanted to talk about was you guys did do the show Screwed Over.
Yes,
That's right. That was
Well,
the
I
birth
was-
of prank, in a way.
Sorry?
That was like, in terms of our careers, so-called in hidden camera, that was the beginning.
The beginning of the prank. We've done so many prank shows, by the way. Like, we talk about scare tactics, but I've done, I think, 7 or 8 prank shows at least. And I don't know why it was popular for a while and we had done it. But Screwed Over was, the first instance I can remember of us doing a prank show. It was actually the other 2 guys in Cock Guns, Morgan and Leo.
Yeah.
And then you and I acted
We're
on it.
We're just acting in it. For
And then the
most part.
crazy part is Shane was in one of the bits.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
You
Which
set
one?
up your buddy, right?
My buddy.
Set it up for the listeners. You didn't work here or anything at the time.
I didn't work here, but I was always looking for opportunities. And I guess I'm not sure if you introduced somebody to some of my videos or something.
We knew.
Yeah.
Was it Mike who showed us? But we saw your video. Someone introduced us to Teen Wolf 2.
Oh, Teen Wolf 3.
That was me.
Yeah.
I showed you guys.
Oh,
Teen Wolf
right,
3.
right.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
we were the band in it. He cast my band with my brother in it, and I just thought it was great that Shane made this.
It was just
weird
amazing.
YouTube movie.
Yeah. And so we were definitely fascinated by you at that point. And then I believe
And so my
What was the bit? What was the bit?
Okay, so the production company that made Teen Wolf 3 was called Snatch TV.
Okay.
So we had an idea where my best friend would there'd be some mix up where you guys think he's a sex addict because he's always wearing Snatch TV shirts.
right.
So
So you helped contribute to the prank idea.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So then when he comes to the hotel room, you guys come out and you're like, "Hey, this is an intervention for your sex addiction."
I was the guy.
Yeah.
And I was an ex-sex addict.
yes, and you were going to send him on a fishing trip, like a fishing expedition to get crab or
King
something.
crab, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to sort him out. We were going to send him fishing for king crab.
And he was kind of buying it, but kind of confused. So I had to like start crying in front of him to actually convince him that it was real. And and we lured him with a sexy female.
That's right, Brigitte. Who's
Yeah.
in all the bits.
Yeah, she's in there. Yeah,
and
she's
Morgan
in
was the doctor,
Right.
or like who tested to see if he was a sex addict.
all right. All right.
Oh yeah, we had a little sort of beep thing that would go off. I think around his crotch. It told you he was a sex addict.
Maxie, do you know who it is?
Well, you told me it was.
Oh, Rob
It was
Escula.
Skula, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's our dear friend
Yeah.
today?
And sex addict.
And
still.
sex-
He's
He
still
has it covered.
just as addicted.
It
to
was
sex
pretty
as
funny
ever.
though, and we kept telling him like, as soon as you leave this hotel room, we're putting you on a boat for 3 weeks.
And he's just like, I can't do that. It's like, you have to.
Yeah.
That was good.
Man.
And the first bit, it was weird because I thought you were describing like I think it was the very first Screwed Over bit was a similar intervention scenario, and we were at that really crappy Howard Johnson's, and we brought this guy in, and it was kind of like confronting him. I can't even remember what we were confronting him about, but I was the guy he had an anger management problem was the idea, and all I remember I felt like it was the first time I was doing hidden camera, and I felt like this is like what it's like to be an undercover cop. Like we're bringing a guy to a hotel room. I've never seen him before in my life. I'm here by myself, even though there's a crew, and I'm just going to bullshit him until I have to get him to do what I want him to do.
Yeah.
And I remember, and then as soon as I saw him, he's like this kind of big, thick-necked kid. I'm like, I think this guy can beat me up. Like, I don't know how bad I want to push this. Like, I don't know how far I want to push this if it goes sideways, And I've always had that feeling in doing hidden camera. It's like, this could get a little weird. Like,
And it has.
and it has many times.
How much do you get when Borat came out? Did you just have anxiety watching that? Because for me, him putting himself in those situations, Sacha Baron Cohen, like, what did you guys think when you were seeing that? At that point, had you guys done hidden camera stuff?
I can't quite remember. I think we had. Yes, we had, because what happened was Borat actually changed the rules of hidden camera in terms of the legal issues. And after he came out, I remember we had to get some like pre-signing thing, because they would usually, I remember the early days of Scare Tactics, they told us they would literally just call a temp agency and invite the person over and then scare them and then just have them sign a release at the end. But then we had to come up with this complicated way to get them into the bits. So yes, Borat had come out. I mean, look, he's amazing. I mean, it's on a next level. Compared to what we were doing, it was different. Ours dealt a lot. I mean, I like Scare Tactics the best. We did another show called Freak Encounters that had a similar vibe. But the ones that dealt with fear were kind of a different, kettle of fish altogether. I mean, they were crazy. And we had people totally freak out, just go running, like attacking. We tried to be safe. But, I mean, people, when they're really, really scared, it's insane. It got pretty real. One guy showed up on shrooms, actually. His buddies had given him shrooms because it was his birthday and then put him on Scare Tactics.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not a good.
And that's the
making me
problem
anxious.
is that people are, you can do whatever you think you can vet it and, make it safe, but, it's volatile. Like you're scared. You're telling a lot of the time you're going out of your way to convince someone they're going to die.
Do people ever notice hidden cameras?
I have had people notice things, or people think, oh, that's weird. but what I learned was at first I thought we were going to get caught all the time. I was like, oh my God, we're burned. But you realize if you just keep going, it's unbelievable. And I think I was telling you about Howie Mandel earlier, how he's like a hidden camera master. Like, I don't think people know that about him. He's done a lot of hidden camera shows and he loves it.
You said he's a really good guy too.
Howie's a great guy. And you said earlier, Max, you don't meet your heroes. But I mean, I guess Howie wasn't my hero, but he is an awesome dude.
Yeah.
And
so meet guys you kind of like.
Meet guys you kind of like and respect. But he was awesome. He spent time with us. He would sit down with us and talk to us one-on-one. He's just super funny. He would just do jokes like when we were out just for fun, and
Just working on
like
it.
what would be an example?
well, I remember like we'd go to a restaurant with him and then he would just go sit like 8 tables away and be like, oh, as if we got it wrong, just for no reason. But he was like that all the time. And he was just a super fun, kind of happy, fun guy and a workaholic. I mean, the guy, I don't think people know this, but he still does like something like 250 stand-up dates a year.
Yeah.
So he would just fly around all the time and he would come back. He'd be like exhausted. He hadn't slept, but he still muscled through the bit. But anyway, I digress. In Hidden Camera, he's a master. And I remember one of our first bits we did, the guy, he was supposed to be in disguise because it was his show. And he kept playing this guy, Larry, and he was undercover. And it worked most of the time. And then early on, this guy caught him. And he goes, "You're Howie Mandel." And I was just like, we're done. What a waste. And Howie's just like, no, I'm not. Or he just either ignored the question or said, no, I'm not, and kept going. And just got the guy back in. Like the guy point blank said, "You're Howie Mandel," and he still brought him back. So after I saw that, I was like, yeah, you can get anybody back. They're not sure. They're never sure. Cause why would anyone go to all this trouble? And like you said, if you see a camera, you'd be like, the security camera here, I guess. I don't know. You just kind of got to keep going.
You know what? But from a human nature standpoint, this is why con men are so successful. Because you eventually accept the reality of the situation. And I think people are just banking on that and they'll just deny it till they die and sort of commit to whatever they're doing.
Yeah. I think there's this, for me, the psychology is also people can think something might be up or off or a bit weird, but the full leap to I'm on a hidden camera show is maybe a bridge too far. They can get their bullshit detector starts to go off, but they don't know how to interpret it. They don't know what to do with that information. Yeah. They're kind of like, this is weird. I don't feel quite right about this, but I don't exactly know what's weird about it.
Yeah, you might say, I feel like I'm on a hidden camera show, but you wouldn't actually
You don't actually
feel
think
that,
you are for
because that's
real.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So you don't fully go there. So you can kind of keep stringing people along.
I'm very gullible, so I relate to all this. Like my roommate convinced me that he won a 60-inch flat screen TV in a cactus growing contest. I was like, that's amazing. And I told my family and like anybody listening, it's like how my roommate Jug had secretly been growing this cactus and then submitted it in the contest. And I dined out on this conversation or on this story for like months. And then it turned out we were just storing our friend's flat screen TV until he had to move to his next place. But
so you'd never even seen the cactus?
No.
This is the deal. In Dundas, Ontario, there's a thing called the Cactus Festival. That has nothing to do with cactuses. And
that's weird.
He came home and saw the TV.
I was like, where'd you get the TV? He's like, won it at the Cactus
Festival. That was happening that weekend. I was like, what?
Yeah. And then I'd be telling it everybody else knew but me. And then at one point I was like, hey, Chuck, what kind of cactus is it? He's like, Arizona summer cactus. I was like,
like, I've never seen. Is there a picture of it? Like, didn't you want to just see the damn cactus since it won this big award?
No, it was good enough for me. Just the story. Yeah.
Well, that's just the thing too. Sometimes the more outlandish it is, the more believable it is
Yeah.
too.
You'd like, how could you make that up kind of thing?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once we got people going into sort of aliens and, Bigfoot or whatever it was, it just, they started to just go, what is going on? Like they just, no idea. Like you couldn't prepare yourself. Like I always thought, people ask me if I ever felt guilty doing it, because, and I guess I did in some ways, but,
I have deep guilt about a lot.
Do you?
Of them. Yeah.
So a lot of people do. And I notice, as Canadians especially, none of the, the American guys are like, who cares? But kind of felt a little bit. I was okay, but it was funny. At the end, the friend, what got us out was like, it was always, your friend set you up, your friend set you up. And then the friend, they'd always go, my friend set me up? Oh, man. I'm going to get you back so bad. And I was always thinking like, no, you're not. You're not going to spend 80 grand to go prank your friend. Like, it's just not going to happen, right?
No, this is it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, another thing, you guys, season 4 of Gayl Pile is coming on. So we talked a bit about Morgan Waters, who obviously Max, you know, he's nominated for a Juno right now too.
Yeah, Weaves is. Yeah,
That's right.
I've known Morgan for a long time.
And you guys, like, so how'd you guys get involved with him originally, and then this show?
You know what happened was, I believe it was Martin Markle. It was a CBC exec. Anyway, the exec at CBC at the time had seen, I think it was the signals from Times IDs that you worked on, Mike,
Oh, okay,
when I was
yeah,
here.
Yeah.
And he phoned me up and said, "You want to work on the Morgan Waters show?"
Which was Morgan's like sketch comedy after school show that he had.
Yeah.
Circa 2005, 6.
It was sort of like a kids sketch comedy show,
Yeah,
or
it
sort
was
of like
after- yeah.
tweens kind of thing.
I liked it.
It was
Yeah, it was
great.
fun. It
It's
was-
still funny if you watch the ones that are on YouTube. They're
Yeah,
funny.
Yeah.
And I was happy with the ones we did, but I took it on as sort of a freelance thing, and then Brooks did one, and
Wait a
another
second.
friend-
While you were working for us, you were doing CBC shit?
Yeah, that's right.
Whoa.
What I said about moonlighting?
Moonlighting.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I was nervous about that at the time. I remember like I didn't want to. We kept that on the down low for sure.
Well, look, a lot of people do that stuff around here. We know that, but it was an opportunity. I jumped on.
It wasn't Bell Media at the time either. It was
No.
Chum. So
Yeah.
you know.
They were pretty loosey goosey.
They were more loose. Yeah. Oh, those are good times, man.
They were good times.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't reminisce too hard about that.
Yeah.
About how good those times were.
I know, it's true.
Careful.
Yeah. Well, it's not really Bell's fault. It just was a different era. But
So you guys excited about season 4?
we were
of
so
Gayl Pile?
excited, and actually, funny enough to segue for you. I mean, I believe that we did a bit on Screwed Over that about this. I played a character that was like this female beauty expert, which kind of inspired
Yeah.
Gayl Pile later on when they got
There was
the
a
book.
bit on Screwed Over where Morgan played this like goofy TV host, infomercial host. Andy played an Australian sort of beauty expert guy. And then it was a couple of years, it was quite a few years later. I remember thinking like, I'd worked with Morgan and Andy on plenty of things. And I always liked Morgan doing sort of dorky, nerdy characters. And I loved Andy's sort of like, shitbag Australian character. And I was like, why don't we, and we just did a little proof of concept video of that and then ended up using that to pitch and got a show out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we're 4 seasons deep now, which is crazy to me. But that's the short version of what happened. It was like, but even when we made that, the thing that we shot, the proof of concept for the Amazing Gayl Pile, that was at least, I want to say 6 years removed from that Screwed Over bit.
Yeah, it was much later. But it's great because I've gotten more work as an Australian than as a Canadian.
Well, this is my thing, man. So I was literally sitting at home like 3 months ago, and Fargo just came on Netflix. And so I throw it on because everyone's like, Fargo TV show, so good, so good, so good. So I'm like, all right, I'll throw it on one day. It's Saturday, I'm hungover. And so I'm getting into it, and it is very good. That first season's awesome. And I get to like episode 7 or 8, and like my jaw hit the ground. I was like, holy shit, that's Andy King in an Australian accent on fucking Fargo. Like,
Yeah.
right, man.
so how does that happen?
I mean, I would say I owe it to the Amazing Gayl Pile. I had played an Australian at that point for a couple of years, I guess, and my agent heard that they were looking for an Australian and Fargo needed Canadians. So
were they shooting up here?
They shot
They
in
were shooting Calgary.
Alberta, yeah.
And so she's like, "Do you want to audition for this?" And I was like, "Hell yes!" I mean, like, I was the biggest Coen Brothers fan in the world, and I did my thesis on the Coen Brothers at school. So I was just, I jumped all over it, and I was like nervous, and I got to self-tape because I'm not very good in auditions, so that was good. And I worked on it, and eventually they said okay. I had to go back a few times, and they said okay, and I was just like bouncing off the walls. But then, actually, funny story. I have a friend who works in production out in Calgary. And somehow, through some weird thing, he's like, yeah, I heard that you were being discussed in this production meeting out here in Calgary. And I was like, what? Why would they be discussing me? Like, I'm just like a bit player on the show. And he's like, oh, it's the accents, because they're worried about everyone doing these Fargo accents. And, you're not a real Australian. So they're kind of a little nervous. So I'm like, oh, great. I'm panicking. I call my agent right away. I'm like, could I lose this? Could I lose this thing? Because for me, this was a huge thing. Like, are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
And so I was just freaking out. So she's like, well, I guess technically they could still fire you. So I was like, oh man. So I thought of this plan. I was like, all right, could you do this for me? I said, send them an email and ask them if they want me to do a Melbourne accent or a Sydney accent.
That's good.
Did you have a different?
No idea.
No, that's genius.
Yeah.
So it went back. They went around. I saw all the execs, even Warren Littlefield from NBC was on this thread, and it all went around, and you could see them going, they're asking Sydney or Melbourne, and everyone's like, question marks, and they're like, whatever, just do Melbourne.
So you gave them a choice, which made it
That's
seem like you were
fucking
an
genius.
expert at the accent.
That's right.
Because you'd had this inside tip.
Yeah.
Do you think that secured you the job?
I don't know. I mean, I think it could have. And I mean, I was just lucky to have a friend who works in locations,
Yeah.
you know, in Calgary. So
But I think, didn't you tell me that originally they thought perhaps like when they saw your self-tape, they thought you were an Australian. You at least fooled the casting people, and then they maybe later found out you weren't and then panicked about the accent?
yeah, I'm not sure how it went down. And maybe they were like, oh, he's not Australian. I'm not sure because they did cast out of Canada. So, but I just know that they were concerned. And again, just because everyone was doing an accent. And so there were so many people that they were like, you know, they wanted to be authentic.
It's like one accent too far.
Yeah.
That's where they draw the line.
Yeah.
Well, and on the Amazing Gayl Pile, Andy's as JD Castleman, the accent is so like by design, it's so cartoonish. The character,
I've made it more Cockney and
yeah, and we've also like we make up slang for Australians that doesn't even exist. Like we have this running gag that, you know, instead of streamers, you'd say at a birthday party, Australians call them squiggly wigglies because it sounds like something that they would call them, but even though that's not true. And we have tons of things like that we're just like, yeah, that's what Australians call that. And then he says it as if they do. So it's this like weird zone of it's made up anyway.
Brooks is an expert at writing phony Australian slang.
Oh man, it's my favorite thing to do. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a blast though, and this season I have to say is really I guess off the chain or whatever the kids say.
That's an Australian expression.
Yeah, off the chain. But it's really crazy. There's an apocalypse on the horizon, and it gets wild. And it's a very interesting show. You know, I'm happy to have been a part of it because it's just super weird and creative. And you know, as you guys probably know, Paul Scheer is in it. They got the voice of John Hamm. They got John Daly. I don't know if you guys know him. He's an amazing comedian. Scott Thompson's in it. So it's just been like I got to do a scene with Scott Thompson.
Man, how was that?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And he's just a super great guy. So it was a lot of fun. And who I just can't believe that this show is doing all that because it's like no one would have greenlit this in a million years. I don't know how this even got through.
Well, it grew organically. It's one of like the IPF. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's the Independent Production Fund, which funds web series. They used to fund independent TV pilots back in the day, and it's like an endowment. And you know, you have to pay them back. It's not like they're just giving you money, but they invest in web series, and we sort of grew. Like our first season, we had a tiny budget. And it was a passion project, and I assumed that it would be one and done. We were going to do our 10 episodes, and it just kind of like got a little bit exposure in the States. It led to Morgan and I getting management down there. It kind of we got these little bites that kind of, now we're getting another season. And then the third season was CISO, which was NBC's new comedy subscription streamer.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're getting financed by them for a third, and all of a sudden our production value goes up, triples. And, you know, now the CBC's involved. And now we're a fourth season with the CBC. And it's just like every year the financing and it's taken all these twists and turns. And the fact that we're still making it is amazing. And it's a blessing. There's more minutes of the Amazing Gayl Pile than there was of Caught Guns, which was 13 half hours.
Yeah.
And even though it's a web series, the production value is getting higher and it's better quality. And every season it's gotten better and better. And it's great. I mean, I feel extremely lucky that this absurd show that's behind the scenes at a shopping channel, which is nonetheless this psychosexual odyssey with apocalyptic overtones, it just keeps on going. Like it's just it's absurd.
Nominated for an Emmy last year.
I saw it. I know. And you guys have won a bunch of Canadian awards.
Absolutely.
And obviously
Won a
nominated
couple CSAs and
Yep.
nominations, and we're very thankful for all of that. And as they say, it's like you couldn't have predicted its path when it started. Like there was no model for it to succeed in the way it has. So we've just kind of been figuring out as we've.
It's a good lesson to people out there that just go do something because you really don't know what's going to happen. And I'm starting to think like now I'm like, I think sometimes like when you do start to make it happen, that does help make it happen. I don't know why, but do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I always talk about that with band stuff. It's like just do stuff and you don't know what doors will open as a result. But if you don't do anything, then nothing's definitely going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you wait for the perfect thing.
Yeah.
People get stuck doing that all the time. There's like, I don't know if that one's right. And it's like, just do shit.
Yeah, once you start going, it's really easy to then sort of pivot into something else or to whatever. But yeah, you just got to start making stuff because you never know. Like, there's no way in a million years you thought, like, when you pitched the original Gayl Pile that John Hamm would be in your thing and you'd be nominated for an Emmy. Like, it looked like a little tiny web series.
How does John Hamm get involved?
Well, when we did our third season, which was for CISO, as I say, which was NBC, we brought in a American producers that we'd worked with in the past, Abominable Pictures. They make like Children's Hospital on Adult Swim.
Yep.
A bunch of other shows. They actually do a couple of Netflix series. What's the one?
They did the Wet Hot American Summer.
Wet Hot American Summer. A lot of great stuff. So they were fans, and Paul Scheer was a fan of the Amazing Gayl Pile. And so once we got into that process of now we're making it for CISO, it's going to be an original for them. Season 3, suddenly we had more bandwidth and more clout.
You have more juice.
We had more jam, so we could do outreach. And I remember I swear to God, I almost talked us out of even bothering to contact John Hamm. It was kind of, we had this huge list of like, we need a voice, we want to aim high. And I was like, why are we even bothering? And then I was like, no, we're going to do it. We went to him first. And within 24 hours, he said yes. And next thing I know, I'm on a plane to New York to record him doing a voice of a character that I wrote. I'm like,
Did you direct him in the booth sort of
Yeah,
deal?
it was crazy. It was insane.
What's he like?
It was super nice. He had just come off the plane from St. Louis. He had been at
Game
he's
6
from
of
there.
the World
He'd been
Series.
No. It was in the winter. He'd been at Blues versus the Sharks. And this is like 2 winters ago, 2 playoff seasons ago. He'd just gotten off the plane. He drove him, like he got in an Uber, came to the recording studio. It was a bada boom, bada bing, laid it down. And
Was he a hero of yours?
Yeah, well, that was truly great for me. It was like, it wasn't just like, oh, let's just find some big name. Like I'm a fan of John Hamm's, a huge fan of Mad Men, and he was like, when meeting him was great. He was super nice.
He's a comedy guy too,
and he loves doing comedy. That's the thing. And I part of me was like, what, did you lose a bet? Like, why are you here? Like, why are you doing this? And he just straight up, he's the kind of guy, he reads something, he likes it, he'll do it. And that simple, and to hear that, you're like, well, fuck. It is validating. Let's be honest. You're like a pro that's a big star is saying like he likes your work and wants to do it. You're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's great.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised would you have been if it was Howie Mandel as John Hamm?
Yeah, the whole thing, just like my whole life is just a long form prank.
So good.
Yeah, like wow. Yeah. I would have on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how good he is, man. Man, that's awesome. So everybody, check out Filth City, like we said, in Canada on YouTube and internationally.
The new leader of the PC party, just to mention, if anyone cares, threatened to run me over with a car last year.
Doug Ford.
Ford.
Yeah, which was a great, promotional bonanza for Filth City.
You're serious? So this is obviously a take on Rob Ford and that whole fucking fiasco
in Toronto.
It was
inspired by the Rob Ford crack scandal, but what happened was it got into the Canadian Film Festival, and I guess a trailer came out, and then he started calling us scumbags and like disgusting profiteers, and then he threatened to run me over with his car.
Doug did.
Yeah.
And he's now the head of the PC
And now
party.
he's head of the PC party. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's leadership.
He was in the building yesterday.
Was he?
You guys, if we had done this yesterday, you could have crossed paths.
Oh,
That'd been awesome.
Great.
Yeah, it's probably best we dodged a bullet there, but no, he's
No, you dodged an SUV.
Yeah, vehicle.
True. So yeah, but he doesn't want you to see it, just so you know. And actually, while we're here on that note, since you guys, if I could get the word out, if anyone has an IMDb account and has seen Filth City on YouTube and wants to give us a nice rating, Ford Nation got together and tried to sync our rating on IMDb. All these like suburban moms got really angry about it, and that we were making fun. They thought of Rob Ford, and they're like, vote him down. Ones or zeros.
To be honest with you, I think there's lots to enjoy for everyone in Filth City, including Ford supporters. I honestly believe that like you could be, if you are a Ford supporter, you probably also would enjoy the film.
We've had good reviews from Ford supporters, so
The film crosses party lines.
it does.
It's universally appealing.
And who can say that nowadays?
I know. In these polarizing times.
Oh God.
Well, Brooks, Andy, it was a delight to work with you guys back in the day.
Likewise, Mike.
And you guys are doing awesome stuff, and it's super fun, I think, to watch you guys sort of ascend and just keep doing cool creative work. So thanks for coming
Thank
on.
you so much for having us, and Shane and Max, thank you guys, man.
Yeah, thanks
so
for coming.
much, guys.
And is our episode of Screwed Over available anywhere?
I hope so.
Yeah?
See if you can track it down.
YouTube.com.
I bet you
yeah.
it's in deep in the archives of this building somewhere.
If anyone can get to it, you guys can.
All right.
Welcome to everybody's favorite part of the show, the dessert. We are joined by our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. Shane, what's up?
Yo.
And we are also joined from the road in Europe on tour with his band Arkells. You're on the road with Frank Turner, I believe, right now, our friend and producer Max Kerman. Max, how's it going out there?
Hi, it's doing good.
Still shirtless?
Still shirtless. Haven't put my shirt on since the last episode.
Shane, what do you got for us?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about two things. The first, the Nathan Fielder. I'm still on the pursuit. We got episode 100 coming.
The next episode is episode 100.
Will we get Nathan? Won't we get Nathan? It looks like we probably won't get Nathan.
That's a safe bet.
To answer it. But I did, I'm trying not to be annoying with this because I don't want to enter waters and do things that kind of get me in trouble. But I am enthusiastic and I am trying to get Nathan. But I want to do it in somewhat right protocol. So I was like, maybe I don't just do cold calling random people, whatever. But I got contacted by this podcast fan, Nicole.
Hello.
Hey, Nicole, it's Shane.
We were at the live podcast. You had so many people lined up to talk to you. We're like, oh, that's okay. We'll talk to Shane later. But we ended up having to leave. But anyway, my boyfriend, his cousin, is a director who I had texted you about.
Yes.
So he, a couple of weekends ago, had lunch with Nathan Fielder and was talking about the podcast and stuff. So
Are
he's
you
given
kidding?
us. No, I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. So he's given us two numbers because you have to go in Hollywood. You have to go through the right chain of events and the right people to get the right blah 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 publicity and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So the two numbers he's given us, he said to try the one girl in creative. Her name is Carly.
Okay.
Cover Creative?
Hi, I'm looking for Carly, please.
Hey, she's actually not in. But can I take a message and I'll get it over to her?
Yeah, can you just tell her this is the Mike on Much podcast calling, looking for an interview request with Nathan Fielder for their episode 100?
Of course. She actually takes all of her requests on email. Do you want me to just give you that?
If you can't get a hold of her, try Andrew. So my boyfriend, he was relaying the information to his cousin, and so then his cousin relayed the information back to said, look, I've had lunch with Nathan. Now call these people. He'll get it set up. So however you want to take that.
Okay, so Shane's going to record this on his Cobra Cam, and I guess I'm going to put my mic up to the phone here so we can hear the people. Are you going to do speaker? Is that the deal?
Yep.
Crazy.
United Talent Agency.
Hi, I'm looking for Andrew, please.
Sure, which Andrew?
Oh, geez. Andrew.
Okay, one moment. Office.
Hi, could I speak to Andrew, please?
May I ask who's calling?
Yeah, this is Shane Cunningham from the Mike on Much podcast.
Cunningham. Sorry, for which podcast?
We're the MTV of Canada. It's like Much Music, Mike on Much.
Okay, thank you. One moment. Hey, I'm sorry, I couldn't get him. Would you like to send an email?
I'll just call back at a later time.
Okay, what is the call regarding?
It's regarding our episode 100 for the Mike on Much podcast. We're trying to get Nathan Fielder on as a guest, and I was recommended to call this number by Brandon Nutt. I'm not sure if that name means anything, but apparently they had a lunch together, and apparently Nathan's willing, or at least kind of open to listening to see if he could be a guest on our show.
Yeah, if you could send us an email.
Right, it's probably easier to email than write all that down. Yeah. Okay. And if I call back at a later time, when would be the better time to call?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You want the email or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm more of a phone man.
You got it. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so there you have it.
By the way, UTA, United Talent Agency, is a massive agency.
Yeah.
So you calling the front desk and asking for Andrew is fucking hilarious.
I'm more of a phone man myself, he says. Don't need the email.
So another pray in the web. Geez. Let's say Nathan's gone. Let's forget about him for episode 100. And the thing that now I'm going to kind of tease, I guess, is I've got something cooking that could potentially be big for episode 100. It's kind of an audio documentary I've been working on. I've been shooting a lot of it with the Cobra Cam.
It's very exciting.
It involves someone kind of big, like a mogul. We are in a bit of a type of weird head-scratching case that I'm investigating. Is any of this intriguing you at all? Like,
I'm very intrigued. I like to stay blind when it comes to any of your escapades. So
Right.
I like to be surprised.
all right, plausible deniability. I like it.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Mike and Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. I am your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.